Portland Art Museum's new exhibit, Global Icons, Local Spotlight, contemporary art from the collections of Jordan D. Schnitzer, is opening this weekend. You could see more than 65 works by celebrated artists of the 20th century, including Andy Warhol, Helen Frankenthaler, Ellsworth Kelly, and Robert Rauschenberg. This will all be on view through January 11th, right through the opening of PAM's new expanded campus, which is happening on November 20th. Kids 17 and under are always free. Grab your tickets now at portlandartmuseum.org. You have less than a month left to get your badges for Rose City Comic Con, Portland's premier pop culture event, and they have an even more star-studded roster with indie film icon and White Lotus Season 3 star Parker Posey in attendance. And that's along with members of the Dungeons & Dragons web series Critical Role and Doctor Who stars Christopher Eccleston and Billy Piper. This is all happening September 5th through the 7th, and you can go grab your badges now at rosecitycomiccon.com. That's rosecitycomiccon.com. Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about how the city's $88 million investment into the Gateway neighborhood hasn't quite panned out, the 44 storefronts hitting the market in the Pearl District after a major investor's exit, and how West Coast governors are forming a vaccine alliance as the CDC stalls on updated guidance. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup, our Word is Bond Executive Director Lakayana Drury and our very own Executive Producer John Notarianni. It's Friday, September 5th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Lakayana, John, thanks for hanging out with me this morning.
Hey, good morning.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's so nice to have you back, man. For those of you new to the show, today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists and community leaders in town, like Lakayana here. But before we jump into the news, I usually ask our guests an opening question so our listeners can get to know them a little better. And today I actually have two opening questions specific to each of you. Lakayana, this Tuesday we aired our September guide. Every month I get together with John here and our other producer, Julia, and we each bring our top picks for things to do and eat in the Portland area for that month, plus a useful hack. So I was curious, if you had been on the show that day, what your pick for what to do, check out, eat, or even a hack for September would have been.
I'm going to say check out a local play. I recently just got to participate with Portland Playhouse, and they've got a new production, which I'm blanking on the name of, but it's coming out in late September. And I just think that Portland has an array of really cool local production companies, and I would encourage you to check out a play. And I'll say that.
I feel that so hard. I mean, in our newsletter, Hey Portland, Rachel is often listing all sorts of different theater stuff going on. And I'm constantly reading them being like, I should check that out. I haven't done it. So I might take your advice too.
Yeah. I usually go to the Schnitzer, but like to see them do live scores to movies. That's
super fun too.
That's the extent of my theater, which when you think about it is not theater at all. But in my head, I'm like, I'm going to the theater.
Yeah, Arlene Schnitzer, it's really cool. They got Kamala Harris is coming here this fall, so they got some pretty cool lineups there as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check out some actual theater. John, your question is different because you were already on that show, and I already know what all your picks are. But you're not going to be on next Tuesday's show when Julia is coming on to tell me her guide for the best late night eats in the city. As we all know, Portland is not known for being a late night town, but according to Julia, our resident youth, there are more and more late night spots opening up, and she's got a list to share with a breakdown of what they serve and the vibe and all that. I just looked at the prep dog, and I'm pretty sure she went to every single one. My question to you, John, is what is your favorite late night spot?
The last late night spot I went to was Bone Sign, which I've talked about on the show many times. They have a late night happy hour that's great. But if we want to go really late, it's a couple years since I've done this. I think late night dining isn't the time for like the most gourmet food of all time. When I was out late more frequently, my go-to spot would be the Florida Room. Which is, great patio. Get in there like 12:30, 1 a.m., get some tater tots, maybe some like mini corn dogs if you're feeling super fancy. That is like the spot.
Wow. I haven't had a Florida Room mini corn dog in many a year.
It's been a minute for me too, but yeah.
I didn't know they had corn dogs.
They're like little baby corn dogs. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually I'm like, man, that makes me want to go to the Florida room, but I do not have that feeling.
I like the Florida room
at 1:30 in the morning on that smoke-filled patio.
I'm like, still don't want to go. What were you saying, Lakayana? Sorry.
No, I was going to say I'm a big fan of the Florida room too. Just the patio, the quirkiness of it. They always have something cool on the sign out there.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that sign. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you both for your answers. On to the news of the week. Lakayana, you looked into a Willamette Week deep dive about Prosper Portland's supposed failed investments into the Gateway neighborhood. Lay it on us.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it was a really interesting article, and as I was just told, it sounds like 4 different interns were working on it. So shout out to them. There's 2 ways to look at it. There's the article, and it talks about an $88 million investment that Prosper Portland made over several decades to build up the Gateway community.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the reality on the ground of being over near Gateway Center, which I think anyone in the city who's drove by it or who shopped there can say, like, there's a lot going on. I think that's one way to put it. There's a bunch of businesses in that shopping, this is called district. There's the Applebee's, there's the Wingstop, there's Kohl's, there's Ross. And then obviously it's all anchored by Fred Meyer, which when you look at it on the surface, right, is providing groceries to the community. You also have a Winco right across the street. So I think one of my immediate concerns is just like access to food, right? I think that's immediately what we look at.
Could you give us like a crash course real quick, like just on the Gateway neighborhood, like, where it is really in relation to Portland, what it's all about?
I would say that true to its name, Gateway Center is really like a main thoroughfare to the community. It really connects. For me, that's where it starts. Even though like part of that neighborhood's still technically in Northeast Portland, I would say like it's the beginning of East Portland, or like if you're coming in from the east, it's like the entryway into Northeast. It's also like if you're going down to Clackamas Town Center, which a lot of like youth, that's the way they're going to the one of the last malls that's in the community. So it really plays a vital connection point between the East and Northeast and then Southeast Portland, mostly with the Mac stop. But then it's also just a gathering space. I think that's a great place to kind of look at it, because what I know about that community is my brother bought a house within a 5-minute drive of Gateway Center. I've been to the mosque that's just up the street where Muslims pray every Friday. Councilor Loretta Smith just opened the city council's first office, literally 4 blocks from there as well. When I look at the Fred Meyer's closing there, I think it's really easy for us as a city to dissect that and point blame to one group of people. Oh, it's the shoplifting. Oh, it's the houselessness that's building up around there. Oh, it's the failed politicians that didn't, do XYZ, or it's Prosper Portland that put $88 million in and it didn't come up together. But I think it's a collective, just for lack of a better word, I'll just say failure of the entire community to really, provide resources to all the community members so that there isn't a high need for shoplifting, so that people are housed, so that folks with mental illness and mental health challenges, that they're getting the medical support and other services that they need. And it really does draw a question mark up of what comes next. You had the Fred Meyer on 82nd that eventually became an Asian grocery store. So we've seen opportunities like that where it has flipped into something beautiful. I know up in my neighborhood in Kenton, one of the best examples I've seen of a vacant building was the old, it wasn't a Walgreens, but it was something similar to that. And that closed down. They lost their lease and it ended up becoming a rehabilitation center for houseless individuals. So I think that there really is an opportunity for something to come. But I think it speaks to the larger challenge of the city of like, what is the path forward? But I think Portland's on its way back up. But in that process, I think we're going to see more businesses and areas flatline out before they come back. And the question is like, how do we go from there? And how do we make sure that everybody's served? Because that's one of the things I would add to your earlier point about what is Gateway Center. It serves a lot of different people. It's not just one group's space. That is a highly multicultural area over there. And what is the future for folks of all different economic backgrounds?
Yeah. You know, when you were talking about, is there going to be a food desert? Like you were saying, the 99 Ranch store, that's that big Asian supermarket. It opened not too far from the Gateway Center. I feel like it's already course correcting in a sense. Like the investment of the community is always going to come from either within that community. Sometimes I feel like agencies like Props for Portland, there is a bar of this is a successful neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then I feel like more successful businesses look at the neighborhood and go, who's here?
Yeah. And clearly like so much more specifically serving the community that lives there than like an Office Depot, which was also an anchor in that neighborhood. Like,
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the time, these investments are for people that they want to move into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, let's create a place that's desirable. Desirable for who?
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why a lot of these investments, they fail because they're not serving that community.
I think that part of it is that I think we've got this notion that communities are just buildings. And if you put something there, that the community will automatically just thrive. And I think that this is a perfect example that shows that communities require more than just buildings, that you also need to serve the people that are in it at a really deep level. And if you don't, then things start to fall apart. And I think that that's what we're seeing with the Gateway Center, and what the conversations around the community is like. People have input about what buildings that they want to see in their community or do or do not want to have, but we're forgetting what the actual people and the various needs that exist as well. And when we forget those needs, then everything else starts to fall apart.
Yeah. I mean, it is a problem of centralized development. And like to go a little bit further down the wonk hole, like I'm sort of interested in like the mechanism that Prosper Portland used to do a lot of the development in this neighborhood, right? Which is tax increment financing, which basically means they sort of sequestered incoming property taxes and then use that to reinvest in the neighborhood, which is a great idea. Like that has worked in certain neighborhoods. In the Pearl, it was super successful. But, it is sort of banking on property tax revenues really, really growing really quickly in a community, which the subtext there is they're banking on it gentrifying, They're banking on it growing in cost more quickly than the people who are already living there are probably able to afford, which makes me think like, even if this has worked in certain neighborhoods in the city, it was kind of a broken system to begin with.
Yeah. You're talking about TIF districts. We've discussed this in what they're trying to do in Old Town. The thing with Old Town is that they're using property income tax from like higher income areas to feed into this area of Old Town. So they were able to be like, okay, we crossed Burnside. Now your property taxes are coming to this like Old Town, Chinatown. Does that make sense? And what's not working with Gateway is just that. It's like, I feel like a lot of these strategies, and I don't think that, boo, Prosper Portland. It's just that these are the tools that they have. And a lot of these tools do depend on, well, who else is going to move into the neighborhood?
Yeah. And as we'll get into like shortly, even when they do work in a neighborhood like the Pearl, that doesn't necessarily solve everything either, right?
Right.
I just will agree. And I think one of the things that Old Town has and is empowering is a really great group of local entrepreneurs of a variety of sizes of businesses, from small coffee kiosks to pizza parlors to hotels. And I'm not as familiar with what the local business scene around the Gateway Center is, but I think one path forward that I would suggest would be empowering those local entrepreneurs that inevitably have to be around there.
100%. Like, communities are saved by the communities themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, more headlines of the week. Cathedral Park Co-Housing is creating a community of connection and belonging in North Portland. Their common spaces are designed for accessibility, helping create a multi-generational, mixed income, and mixed ability community that welcomes everyone. Plus, their land is walking distance or a very short drive to many amenities, including, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful parks in our city and plenty of nature trails. To learn more about Cathedral Park co-housing and see if it might be a right fit for you or a loved one, go to cathedralparkcohousing.com/events. That's cathedralparkcohousing.com/events and sign up for a virtual information session or just call Alicia at 503-319-5003. Act soon because they are close to breaking ground and homes are selling fast. A few weeks back, I biked all the way from St. John's to Mount Tabor to check out the adult soapbox races in 90-degree weather. I not only had one of the most comfortable rides, and I swear to God, was actually getting compliments on my fit. Doer, a performance wear clothing brand, had just sent me some promo samples to try out, so I was wearing their vintage dolman tee, and that shirt kept me so cool and dry, which was surprising because I run so hot. I actually always bring a backup shirt to change into after long rides, and that day I didn't even have to use it. Doer combines classic jeans wear style with a kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. They're using something called Coolmex. It's a breathable fabric that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture. Their jeans are actually antibacterial, so they stay fresh longer. But comfort and quality aside, their clothes just look good. You could wear Doer clothing on your commute to work, at work, or wherever you end up after. Their styles are just classic. And you can see for yourself because they're opening a store this September right here in Portland on the west side at 820 Northwest 23rd. And if you mention our promo code CCPDX in store, you're going to get 15% off your first order. You could also check them out online at shopdoer.com/CCPDX for that 15% off. That's shopdoer.com/CCPDX. So I'm looking into how the owner of 44 storefronts in the Pearl District is packing it up. This is another story from Willamette Week, this time from reporter Anthony Effinger, who keeps an eye out for abandoned storefronts. So back in 2019, Site Centers, an Ohio-based publicly traded real estate investment trusts, they invest in shopping centers, opened up the blocks on Northwest 9th and Overton. That's in the Pearl District. Now, the retail spaces are housed in a collection of 10 residential buildings that, according to their website, and I'm going to read from it now, cater to the 24/7 live-work community and are situated at the base of the most desirable residential towers in Portland, with estimated population growth of 18% over the next 5 years. The Pearl District is one of the most sought-after places to live on the West Coast and offers close proximity to downtown Portland, as well as local freeways, allowing for convenient commuter access.
Claudia, where'd that voice come from? I've never heard that come out of you
Thank
before.
you. There is no war in Ban Sing Se. Pretty sure that copy was written like pre-pandemic.
It's hilarious.
Anyhow, Site Centers is now trying to unload the blocks. The company that's handling it is Newmark, and the sale hasn't listed yet, so we don't know the price. I think they're still like in the process of kind of negotiating, putting all that stuff up, but Newmark is the company that's handling it. They also handle a lot of other properties in the Pearl. But this could appear to be another blow for the Pearl District, which has seen large retail stores shut down. Effinger in the article pointed out to a Starbucks that closed back in 2022, which is kind of a long time ago. But I would like to rebut that there are still 2 Starbucks in the Pearl. It's not like, oh no, where will they get their Starbucks? REI did close its 20-year location and the only outlet within city limits back in 2024, pointing out to crime and whatnot. Effinger's story also does point out that Erath Winery closed its tasting room in that district last month, the same week that the city of Portland said it would open a homeless shelter a block away. But there was no follow-up confirming that the shelter was indeed the reason why they closed or if it was just coincidence. I will say, from what I found online, Erath's tasting room was never really open to the general public. You had to call ahead and reserve a tasting, which ain't nobody got time for that.
If that's the case, I've got a tasting room in my house.
I know. Also, if you're a wine drinker, we all know we're not doing all that for Erath when we're surrounded by amazing wine bars. And this is not to diminish their product in any way. They're a very successful brand, but I can go to the Pearls Safeway where there is a Starbucks and buy a bottle of Erath. Like,
Facts.
I'm just like, this isn't a harbinger, you know? Also, they have been closing down their tasting rooms. Like, they closed their flagship tasting room in Dundee like 6 years ago. So here we sit, 3 people who know close to nothing about real estate or developing. Could this storefront sale be yet another sign that the Pearl District is still in a downward trajectory, as the article gently alludes to, or is the market maybe just correcting itself? Or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a good sign. I don't think it means the business is booming, but I would point to one other fact that is sort of buried in the article. The parent company, Site Centers, has said it's based in Ohio and its stock has fallen 40% so far this year, right? So this is an out-of-state investment company, you know, like a real estate investment trust. And their shares are down across the country, you know? And it says specifically because of high interest rates, which makes it harder for them to borrow and continue to buy up gobs of property in places where they aren't based. So the fact that they're pulling out doesn't necessarily say anything about the Pearl. It just means that their sort of crazy real estate company isn't doing great. That's how I read it.
Uh-huh. And that's a good point, because when they purchased this, rates were like almost at 3%.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. So I can totally see a lot of people making big, bold moves, thinking like it's going to last forever, this gravy train. And then you're stuck. And that's the thing about like investment companies. They always feel like low-key Ponzi schemes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of hopping around that needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that that's sort of my takeaway, is having outside investment companies owning huge chunks of our downtown city sucks.
I think that's a great take on it. And I would also say that the city is still on, it hasn't bottomed out like I was saying earlier, right? The Big Pink building just sold for $45 million in cash, like a third of what it's actually worth. And then you got people like Nordstrom talking about pulling out. So I think that things are still, Moda Center just got bought, right? The Trailblazers are going to stay. I think there's still a lot of shaking out that the city's doing. I agree with John that I would love to see local investment happen. I think that that's the way forward. And I do know for sure that new houseless center is having an impact on residents. I've heard that directly from people that work and are elected officials in the area, that there is a huge push against that because of what the Pearl District supposedly stands for and is. So
what does it stand for, and what is it? What is it? I'm curious. I mean, Lakayana, I know this isn't you. That I'm just saying you said it, so I'm curious. If they had a flag, what is their motto?
I think if they had a flag, and I say this with all due respect, I think in my mind it reads like, "This land is our land." Like that's
and that's it. There's no other.
Like, this land is our land. ... Like, I don't know. Like, you know, it's an affluent space, and I think that there's 2 groups of people that live in it, like wealthier, older white folks, and then like what I see, like young professionals and some professionals of color. So I think it's a mixed space, but it's always kind of presented itself from my transplant eyes as a kind of exclusive space that feels very insular and wants to preserve that image. And while I get that, I think that there's a lot of ways that we're all dealing with the challenges, the economics, the post-COVID system, and we all have to work together. So Pearl District's got to be just like anyone else, and sharing that fact. And how do we make it, you know, everybody lives there. It's not just for you in a condo or, you know, high-rise apartment. It's everybody's community too.
Yeah.
Well, here's a call out to all the real estate and developers who listen to this show. What is your take on the block selling? I'm just curious what people who actually invest in that area or like work in that area, like what they think. Like if they're just like, oh shit, or they're just like, yeah, it was going to go. It's interesting.
To be continued. Yeah.
But both these stories, I'm just like, I want more. I want to hear more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, more headlines of the week. This episode is brought to you by Mubi, a global streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema. On Mubi, you can stream beautiful, hand-picked films anytime, anywhere. And right now they're streaming Vice is Broke, directed by author, producer, host, and chef Eddie Wong. This documentary follows the wild rise and fall of Vice, from a scrappy Montreal alt-punk zine to a $5.7 billion media empire, and ultimately to its dramatic bankruptcy. You can watch Vice's Broke and so much more exclusively on Mubi, and the best part is you can try it free for 30 days on us. Just head to mubi.com/citycast25. That's mubi.com/citycast25. All right, John, what are you looking into this week?
I am looking at vaccines. Oh boy. This is from some great reporting by Christine De Leon at The Oregonian. So we are approaching flu season. COVID numbers are beginning to rise again. It's out there, folks. People are getting sick. And there's been some big changes at the federal level that are affecting what's going on here in Oregon. Just to catch you up, the FDA did approve an updated COVID-19 vaccine for people 65 or older just recently, but the Centers for Disease Control basically cleared house, got rid of a bunch of their staff this year, and has not yet put out its own recommendations for vaccines. That's really important because pharmacists can't just offer a vaccine without the recommendation of the CDC. So that means if you want to get a vaccine for COVID, you need to get a prescription from a doctor. That's not good. We already are seeing cases going up. So at the same time, our governor, Tina Kotek, along with the governors of Washington and California, just launched a coalition to set up their own vaccine and immunization recommendations. They're calling it the West Coast Health Alliance. And this is a quote from their statement. The CDC has become a political tool that increasingly peddles ideology instead of science, ideology that will lead to severe health consequences. So this group of West Coast governors, it's the first time in this administration that a group of regional blue state governors are getting together to sort of put out their own recommendations to, try and preserve access to vaccines for people in the Western states, as it looks like potentially this is going to continue to be an issue and that the federal government might not be as interested in doing it anymore. So, everyone's like, yay, there's a coalition. We're excited. What does it mean? We don't quite know yet. But they are going to be coordinating based on scientific experts. Some of the things that this could mean is potentially bulk purchasing of vaccines across the 3 states. 50 million residents, we could just have a West Coast vaccine supply. And that's not crazy because when it did look like potentially abortion was at threat at a federal level, Governor Kotek did buy a bunch of medicine to sort of protect our stock of the ability of the right to choice here in Oregon as well. So that has already happened. There's also some thought that governors here might allow us to set our own rules to be able to cover state recommended vaccines, right? This is something that would require new laws. It doesn't exist yet, but people are saying that this could be in the mix. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of an ongoing political fight. But yeah, the battle lines are being drawn. West Coast governors are really trying to sort of stand up and protect our access to vaccines here in the West.
Is this legal? Hooray. I'm glad that the state governors are being proactive, but it's federal guidelines. So I wonder if we can supersede that with state rights. Is it, because I know they're planning on doing it.
Oh, I don't think anybody knows. We're inventing rules and then we're inventing counter rules. And eventually there will be lawsuits and it will get decided by a court somewhere 2 or 3 years down the road. There isn't a precedent for any of this stuff. Although there is a precedent for the West Coast states banding together to protect vaccine access. That actually happened during the pandemic, is that they set together a coalition to create their own rules. Luckily, it wasn't necessary. The government didn't try and outlaw vaccines in that case. But this sort of a coalition has happened before. But yeah, if it actually comes down to a political fight with the federal government, I don't know. And so much of what's going on right now is this question of states' rights versus federal rights. I just don't think any of this stuff has ever really been tested.
Florida just became the first state to do away with vaccine mandates specifically for schools. Wow. And that was one of those main arguments that people always had when COVID first came up, and people were like, well, you're getting mandated for a vaccine. And everybody's like, well, you go to school and you have vaccine mandates. And now it's going into that model, Claudia, as you're saying, of states' rights. For me, it's just a matter of I thought that there were just certain things that we all just kind of were on the same page about. Hey, having a measles vaccine, polio, right? These are just things that we all agree that we should probably get and don't want to have. And it just seems to see the floor kind of come out from under us, and like what seemed to be basic understandings is now like up for debate. And I think that honestly, like the whole pandemic has really upended and politicized health and medicine in a very alarming way. And I just don't know. I can't predict what the future is from here. Where do we go from here?
It's really wild. Yeah. I do want to back up to make sure that I didn't misspeak, because we're not talking about actually outlawing vaccines. The two main things at question are like, who can administer them? Can a pharmacist administer it without a prescription? And does insurance cover them? Right. So I think that those are things that we can probably set policies on at a state level. But again,
oh, yeah, 100%. And I think it's all moving towards states' rights. I think most models I've seen for almost any type of guidelines have all moved towards that. Same thing with like we're seeing with abortion. And I don't know what to make of it. I can't really 100% wrap my head around things. I just know that I'm seeing like alliances, right? You got Texas redistricting itself so it can get more seats in the House. And you got California countering it. So you're seeing a lot of shifting battle lines. And at the end of the day, I think the average American is just more and more confused. I think we take for granted sometimes the access we have to education and to the ability to like sit here and like think about two things. But I think there's a lot of people that are just being shuffled around and really don't know what to think. And that's really hard on our communities right now.
And I think, living on the West Coast, we do have the privilege of having political leaders that are really interested in standing up for these things, which on one hand is great. But like on the other hand, if we're in a position where our local state government is needing to take such a strong stand against the federal government, like that is not a good road to go down either.
I do wonder, though, if this is the beginnings of the Cascadia movement actually coming into fruition.
I mean,
there's so many people that's just like, what's that, West Coast? Part of me is just like, federal government, you don't want us talking to each other.
You are much better off when Oregon and California are just trading snippy barbs with one another. Yeah.
The moment that Oregon and Washington are like, you know what? California, you can sit with us. It's over for the U.S. Like it is our passive aggressive hate of each other, weirdly, that is keeping us united. Because I'm like half joking here. Like I'm just like the moment that California, Oregon, and Washington. I know Cascadia also involves Alaska, but let's be real here.
They got their own thing going on.
Yeah. But the moment that we do this, it's just like, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. We're all donor states. We all clearly have a very specific culture.
Yeah.
When you're on the West Coast.
Yep. Well, just to make sure I'm not spreading too much doom and gloom, I did want to point out COVID shots are still available at this point without a prescription at CVS stores in Oregon. And like major insurers here in Oregon say they're going to continue covering vaccines. So Aetna, Blue Cross, Kaiser, they all say that we're going to be good for now. So don't want people to freak out. But, there is a new vaccine available, especially if you're older or have strong risk conditions. It's definitely worth checking it out and scheduling that appointment.
All I'm hearing, John, is that I'm going to be purchasing a new flag.
Is it the Pearl District flag?
I was going to say, is this the Pearl District flag?
Yeah,
Claudia.
It is. How did you know? The reason I asked was because I was designing it as we spoke. Like I was just...
Had your Canva open.
Submissions are now open. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm just like, what is the image?
That's hilarious. You ought to do a little project about that. Have someone design a Pearl District flag.
Neighborhood flags across the city. Neighborhood slogans. Oh my God.
Neighborhood flags, neighborhood slogans. I want to hear them. Lakayana, John, thanks so much for going through some of these headlines. Before we head out, though, I wanted to do some shout outs from members of our Portland Neighbors program. I don't know if you know this, Lakayana, but one of the perks of being a paying member of CityCast Portland is the opportunity to shout out a local business or organization that you love. John, do you want to kick us off with these neighbor shout outs?
Yeah, I got one from Esteban D, who wants to shout out Portland Samba. Samba drumming for everyone. You can join and learn to play Rio-style carnival drumming and dancing on Saturdays, and that all ages and levels are welcome, which sounds awesome and really fun.
Oh my God. Every time there's a parade and Portland Samba is there, it's a vibe. I have another shout out here from Scott H. They wrote, I love Mercado, Taqueria Las Palomas, great food, and a great little grocery store.
Nice. I got one more from Maya M, who wanted to shout out the Hand Up Project in the Q Center on North Mississippi. It helps offer healthy foods to incredible Portlanders with an executive director who works his tail off and volunteers who love what they do and the people who come.
I want to do a shout out to Esteban, Scott, and Meyer. Thank you for writing in your shout outs. Just a reminder, when you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd be happy to read out your shout outs of places you love in Portland. Again, alongside a bunch of other perks like ad-free listening, and you get tickets to free events. You get to hang out with us. You can join at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. Lakayana, do you have your shout out ready?
I do have it ready, and I don't have it official, but there is a crepe restaurant in St. John's that I drive past.
The Villains.
I don't know what the name of it is, but I want to give them a shout out because I always drive by it when I take the St. John's Bridge to go to downtown, past the Pearl District, and I just see it as a small business, and I'm just like, shout out to them.
It's Villains, Crepes, and Coffee. It's on North Levitt. I totally know what you're talking about.
I'm going to go try it.
They have good coffee. I'm not a big crepe fan. Every person who's had a crepe said it's good. I'm just not a creper. But I also want to shout out. So I don't know if you remember this, John, but last week I was like, hey guys, if you listen to the show, you should write a review. So many people did it.
Oh.
I don't know if, and so, thank you to everyone who took the time to do that. That was so incredibly sweet of you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much again for hanging out with me. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone who's listening. Hopefully it won't be too long till you're back on the show again, Lakayana.
We would love to do it. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our executive producer is John Notarianni. Our producer is Julia Fiaioni. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan. And our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drizos. Additional music by Epidemic Sound and All the Kimonos. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.